Don't make me angry.
Hi guys, hello gorgeous. I'm decked out in green because today is Hulk Day on the Michael Mercy YouTube channel. I'm going to be taking a look at one of my favorite shows from my childhood, The Incredible Hulk Season 1. So to start off, I'll tell you a little bit about the actual DVD box sets. All 5 were available with lenticular covers, which we used to call holograms back in the 80s, which changed from David Banner to David Banner with the white eyes to Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk. Very cool effect there. These were all released later on without the hologram covers too. There's 4 DVD cases in here, which progress from David Banner to mid-transformation David Banner to the Hulk to a shot of both David and the Hulk. And the really nice thing about these DVDs is that they're not double-sided like a lot of the old 80s TV shows are. It is single-sided discs, so there's really no danger of scratching the top when you're handling them. So to give you a little backstory on the Incredible Hulk TV show, the pilot episode, well, the first of 2 pilot episodes, was released on November the 4th, one day before my birthday, 1977, and it was written and directed by Kenneth Johnson. Now we got to keep in mind that this was before the Incredible Hulk became as big a pop culture icon as he is today. At the time, he had only been seen in comic books, and comic books weren't as wildly popular as they are today. Kenneth Johnson originally wanted to change the Hulk's color from green to red because it just made more sense to him, red being the color of rage. Stan Lee, though, insisted that the color stay green, and so they went with it. And I really have to applaud Kenneth Johnson for not being a stick in the mud about it. Sometimes these creative types can get a little bit butthurt when they don't get to see their vision through, but the Hulk was green and Kenneth really ran with it. The really awesome thing about the pilot episode is not just that the Hulk is green, but there's green everywhere in the episode. Any opportunity that Kenneth Johnson had, he used green lighting, green walls, green backdrop, and it really creates a cool mood and atmosphere for the episode. One change he was able to make, though, was changing the name of the main character, Bruce Banner, as he's known in the comics, to David Banner. And playing the role of David Banner was the absolutely perfectly cast Bill Bixby. It seemed like an odd casting choice at the time, since Bill's previous show had been a comedy called The Courtship of Eddie's Father, but I think he was absolutely perfect in the role. So a little bit about the first pilot episode. This is awesome. I've seen it several times over my life, and every single time I greatly enjoy it. I think this doesn't just work as a pilot episode to an old TV show. I think this works great as a standalone Hulk movie. And honestly, this is the Hulk movie that I judge all other Hulk movies by. The 2 more recent theatrical movies with Eric Bana and Edward Norton just really didn't do it for me, because this is the way I like my Hulk. I'd never actually read the comic book before watching the show, but this to me just is the Hulk I want to see. He's not invincible, he can get shot, he does have accelerated healing, but it's not to the point where it's like Wolverine where the wound will close up within seconds. It does actually take some time, which is cool for Bill Bixby, because when the Hulk does receive some substantial damage like a major cut or impact or a gunshot wound, it gives him something to work with when he reverts back to David Banner. He has to sell the injury. It's just another thing he has working against him. And speaking of the Hulk, this show hit a double perfect casting jackpot with Lou Ferrigno as the Incredible Hulk. It's really surprising how great Lou Ferrigno is in this, since he hadn't really had any acting experience before this show, but he was an absolute natural. Much like Arnold Schwarzenegger was able to translate his intensity and his laser focus from the gym onto the screen, Lou Ferrigno was able to do the exact same thing. But he's not just a giant raging beast. He's painted up green, he has a scary looking wig and giant eyebrows and a giant monstrous nose. But he has a real gentleness about him as well when he's not super angry and smashing things and growling. he has this childlike quality to him that really makes the Incredible Hulk an endearing character instead of something to be feared. There were certain things that I wasn't into as a kid because I thought they were scary. I wasn't into Star Wars as a kid because of all the weirdness about it, like Jabba the Hutt and Bib Fortuna and the way Vader looked when he was unmasked and the Emperor. It was all just yucky, creepy stuff to me when I was a little kid. But the Incredible Hulk never scared me as a kid because, well, in addition to pounding bad guys, he had that childlike innocence to him. Despite being this 7-foot tall, monstrous, out of control rage beast, he also had his quiet moments. The show wasn't all about the Hulk smashing walls and punching people and throwing people around. They also did what I'm often pleading with directors and filmmakers to do, is to just set the camera down and let the actor act. Without shaking, without punching in, zooming in, going back, dollying, tracking, all of these very elaborate, exciting, intense camera movements. Just put the camera down there, put it on the actor, and let them act. Now, there's some filmmakers who just have too much ADD. They have too much energy in them, and it's almost painful to them to have the camera sitting there stationary or not move very much. Because they just don't see it. They don't see the magic that's going on the screen. But when that gets blown up on a big screen TV or on a projector, you really get to see the subtlety in the performance of someone like Lou Ferrigno that you may have never thought was there to begin with. And Bill Bixby as well. His performance is so gripping. He has such heart and soul in this role, so much gravitas, even though it's supposed to be a fun comic book show. It's Bill Bixby and also the writing and directing and later producing of Kenneth Johnson, but it's Bill Bixby who really, really brings the depth to this show. For people who aren't familiar with Bill Bixby, I think a modern day equivalent of him is someone like Hugh Jackman, which ironically enough, a few years ago, Jackman was trying to get a Bill Bixby biopic in the works. And Jackman was going to play Bill Bixby. But they have that same type of just real, genuine niceness about them. But when they do anger and rage, it's very convincing as well. Whenever there is a Hulk out on this TV show, it is so gripping and intense. Sometimes I'll put the show on the TV in my home gym, and some days I have more aches and pains to deal with than others. And whenever a Hulk out starts to occur, it doesn't matter how beat down I feel and how little energy I feel. When Bill opens those white eyes and he lets out that guttural scream, "No!" which makes the Hulk out even more effective because he fights it every time. He never goes with it. He never wants to be the Hulk. He's fighting it. That's when I get up and I do another set and I push a little harder, because it's not just Lou Ferrigno who's perfect as the Hulk. It's Bill Bixby who perfectly sets up Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk. It wouldn't work if it was a weak actor as David Banner hulking out, not being convincingly losing control, and then you have this giant beast. It's Bill's lead up to the Hulk that makes it perfect, and also his come down when Lou Ferrigno reverts back to David Banner. So I mentioned the show had 2 pilots. The second one aired on November the 27th, 1977, and that one wasn't as enjoyable for me. It didn't have the same patience, the same artistry. That one felt more like a serial TV show about a comic book. It still was more serious than you would think a comic book show would be, but whereas in the pilot episode, the Hulk outs never happen, luckily in a tense situation, in a situation where the Hulk needs to fight criminals or the bad guys. In the pilot episode, it's really a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story where David is losing control. It's happening in the worst possible situations, but it felt like in the second pilot, it was a little more contrived. And that might be because in the first episode there was no real villain. It was the Hulk, if anything, was the antagonist to David Banner, whereas in the second pilot you actually had your clear-cut scumbags that the Hulk had to smash. The first season is nice and short. There's only 12 episodes in it, counting the 2 pilots, and they vary from being very, very good to kind of hokey. None of them were absolutely terrible, though, because no matter how silly the situation might be, you've still got the character of David Banner, played by the incomparable Bill Bixby, and then you're guaranteed at least 2 Hulk outs. And you get to see Lou Ferrigno all muscled up and painted green and smashing things. A lot of the episodes have that heart and soul of the early 80s that I love to see. There's a great episode called The Final Round where David runs into a kind of a Rocky Balboa character who wants to be a boxer. There's also Terror in Times Square, which features the iconic footage of Lou Ferrigno running through Times Square all hulked up. It's also cool that they vary the Hulk outs from time to time. It's not just bad guys grabbing David from behind and punching him or him falling down some stairs and hulking out. There is a really cool Hulk out in the episode 747 where David is trying to land a plane and there's no one else who can do it. The pilot is not available at the moment, so David is thrust into this difficult situation and the tower is trying to walk him through it. And the Hulk outs come not just from anger, but from anxiety as well. So that's a very anxious moment. David is terrified that he's going to crash the plane and all the passengers aboard will be killed. And so he starts to Hulk out. It has nothing to do with pain or being assaulted. And that is a drawn out Hulk out moment where he's actually fighting it. It is so intense. It is such a great moment that he's actually trying to get a hold of himself, trying to stave off the Hulk out. And so for an extended period of time, he's got the white eyes and he's partially done up in the Hulk makeup. And he's kind of this Neanderthal man who's grunting, but he's not full Lou Ferrigno Hulk yet. And he's pulling on the flight stick and trying to land this thing. And eventually he can't overcome it. And he does become the Hulk and starts smashing everything. But that's one of my favorite Hulk out moments from the first season. Not every episode is fantastic. Probably my least favorite is one called Never Give a Trucker an Even Break. When a show is consistently good, you can really notice when certain things aren't being consistent. And Bill Bixby, who is always fantastic, no matter what is going on around him, no matter what situation they've put him in, that's the episode where his acting was really, really off. He's whenever he's sitting beside this female character, he's got this this really strange look on his face. I almost wonder if he was on something, because he's just got this, like, everything he does is overblown, it's overdone. It's more like you would see in a comedy show like The Courtship of Eddie's Father, rather than in something like The Incredible Hulk with this gravitas and with that perpetually sad, lonely man piano theme that plays the show out. So that's the episode that it really kind of felt more like a Saturday morning cartoon rather than being in Kenneth Johnson's world of The Incredible Hulk. And for more comedy, be sure to look for David Banner in a phone booth. Whenever he's in a phone booth, it's unintentionally funny, but it's still pretty funny. And I also have to mention Jack Colvin as Jack McGee, who keeps David on the run. The story has similarities to The Fugitive, but instead of the cops chasing David, it's this nosy reporter, Jack McGee, who's always trying to make David angry. And I think it's an effective piece of storytelling. I like the idea of the only person who's a constant throughout this show being David Banner and also Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk. It's a small cast, so you get an influx of fresh characters every single episode, except for David and the Hulk. But it's also cool to have this one other familiar face who is the other antagonist for David, who's always chasing him and trying to reveal his true identity. Since David faked his death in the first pilot episode, and the world thinks that he's dead, and they think that because of Jack McGee, they think the Hulk is responsible for killing David as well as David's friend. So it's an effective little technique. A lot of the time at the end of the episode when the Hulk has saved the day and David is sharing a nice tender moment with a new friend that he's made, and then someone says, oh, the reporter's going to be here, because the Hulk leaves a lot of chaos in his wake. And those nice tender moments just turn like that when David realizes, Mr. McGee, oh no, I need to leave. And he gives some bogus excuse why he needs to go, and off he goes hitchhiking down the road to the tune of Lonely Man. One of the cool things I noticed about having a fresh new cast every episode is the familiar faces. There's a lot of people who appeared in a lot of my other favorite 80s TV shows like Knight Rider and Fall Guy and A-Team who pop up throughout this. And then you'll see some famous movie faces as well. Most notably in Life and Death is Andrew Robinson, the scumbag Scorpio from Dirty Harry. That's my Incredible Hulk Season 1 review. If you love all things 80s, I highly recommend it. And if you don't have the time or the desire to work your way through an entire season, then I highly, highly recommend at least watching the pilot episode, because it is just so masterfully made. Every time I watch it, I expect this time it's not going to be as good. This time it's just going to be an old TV show episode, and it's so much more than that. It really is a fantastic standalone movie with incredible acting, fantastic cinematography, great editing. They really, really did so much more than what they had to work with there. It's a very, very special movie filled with passion and ingenuity. So I highly recommend at least the first pilot episode. Got something to say about the Incredible Hulk? Scroll down and go to town. And to join the tribe, smash subscribe. Hulk must stay.